Moving into the first point, so we're going to talk CPI. CPI for October, slightly below expectations, gets the market a little bit excited. That came in at 3.2%, which was 0.1% below expectations.
Yeah, so the CPI is the Consumer Price Index, and that is compiled by a government agency, the U.S. Department of Labor Statistics. And basically, it is a proxy for inflation. When people talk about inflation and they use one number for it, they're typically talking about the CPI. Let's just make a couple of points here. First of all, the October CPI, 3.2%, it was below expectations. The market loved that. The same thing for the core. The core CPI, Consumer Price Index, is just the regular CPI, but excluding volatile categories like food and energy. And that is still right around 4%, which is double the 2% target, which itself is 2% too high. Everybody's heard about the Federal Reserve saying we've got a 2% inflation target. That is completely made up. It is a random number that they pulled out as a way that they can steal from you a little bit every year. If you look at the documents, the mandate of the Federal Reserve is stable prices. That's a 0% inflation rate. We'd be much better off with that. So inflation isn't as low as people think. And you got people wildly trading these stocks based on the CPI coming in 0.1% high, 0.1% low. And the reason we think that's a little bit silly is because the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics is not capable of measuring anything with that level of precision, right? And so we're basically saying tiny changes in numbers that can't be measured precisely result in huge changes in value. And that actually makes no sense at all. The other thing we'd add to that is so much of the CPI is manufactured and lies. So let me just give you two great examples. One is food inflation came in at 3.3%, with food at home up only 2.1%. Again, if
where I want to know where that is.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Exactly. So for everyone listening to this, if your grocery bill is up only 2% in the last year, please put it in the comments. I want to see. You're the only person in the country. I want to see this. The people I know are telling me 20 to 30%. Rob, how much is your grocery bill up in the last year?
I mean, we go in and spend a couple $100, it seems like, and open the pantry and it's empty almost.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw a funny meme the other day. It was a grocery cart, and the caption was, "It's the most expensive vehicle you'll drive all year." The other thing that really jumps out is the decrease in the health insurance cost is down, I think, 37% from the high. It's at 2018 levels. Again, I'm asking you guys who are watching this, are you paying the same amount for your medical insurance, your health insurance, that you were in 2018? If you are, then you might believe the CPI. If you aren't, then you're going to come to the same conclusion as deep knowledge investing, which is the CPI is total nonsense, and stocks are moving up and down based on numbers that are completely made up. So, listen, we look at it, we follow it because the market pays attention to it, and you need to understand what's moving the market. But I'm not moving my portfolio based on a random number generator from the BLS, the Bureau of Labor Statistics.
We talked about it already being not something to put too much weight into. Where do they determine where they will pull those numbers from? Is it picking and choosing, picking their spots? What's the method to the madness behind it for them?
Yeah, so I think there are two things that they do. One is there are over 70 separate adjustments that are made to the CPI. And so that basically the Bureau of Labor Statistics gets the numbers and then they redo the numbers. And does anyone want to bet that they're making it look worse? Does anyone want to bet the US government is telling us inflation is worse than it is? Of course not. Right? They always make it look better. The other thing is they make weird changes in methodology that don't necessarily make a lot of sense unless you understand what they're trying to do. And so the easiest one to use as an example is owner's equivalent rent, right? The shelter part of the CPI, which is about a third of the CPI, is supposed to reflect what Americans pay for housing. And so this is about 25 years ago. They switched from actual housing costs to something called owner's equivalent rent, where they go to people and they say, if you were to rent out your house, how much would it rent for? Well, nobody knows, right? Most people who are homeowners, and particularly if you live in a residential area, right? That, like, I live in a neighborhood, nobody's renting near me. There's nothing wrong with renting, but the houses near me aren't rented. Nobody knows what these houses would rent for. And so the reason they do that is because OER, the owner's equivalent rent, has grown at a much, much, much slower rate than actual housing costs. And so for the last 25 years, the largest part of the CPI is a metric that is deliberately designed to understate people's costs, their actual costs. So, you look at this and realize, okay, like, these are not real numbers. It's a government narrative. And,
Right.
that's fine as long as you understand that, as long as you understand, right? It's like playing cards with somebody where, you ask them if they have a good hand or a bad hand. Like, they're not going to tell you the truth.
Right. Right.